I don't think there's a person who is 100% fluent. It's even newsreaders, they're not 100% fluent. They stumble. Why are we trying to fit into a society where people aren't fluent, even the speakers that do not stammer?
Today, Some Stutter Law welcomes Michael Wright, and this is part 2 of Michael Wright's conversation on Some Stutter Law. Just a little bit about Michael Wright. Michael is a person who stutters, who resides in the UK and works within the nuclear sector at Sellafield as a planning engineer. In 2020, Michael co-founded an online Facebook group called Stand Up to Stammering, which offers a safe, encouraging, empowering platform that invites members to share their stammering experiences, gain support from other members, and invites them to build on their courage and confidence through the daily mind over matter challenges. Michael is also co-founder of the Nuclear Stammering Network, which aims to make the nuclear industry an inclusive place to work for those who stammer. By signing, posting, raising awareness on the subject, as well as supporting those within the nuclear industry who stammer. In the future, Stand Up to Stammering aims to provide support via app technology, giving members the opportunity to openly discuss any problems or speech-related issues, as well as having a good crack and banter. And so Michael, welcome back to your second conversation, part 2 conversation of Some Stutter Law. And thank you again for taking the time out of your busy, crazy schedule. So, Michael, when we left off in part 1 of our conversation, the question I asked you was that how do you self-care? You seem to be a very busy man. So, would you like to share with our listeners how you self-care for yourself?
Yeah. So how I self-care? I used to have a classic car, as you can see up above, an old Ford Capri, which I've been crazy on from ever since I could talk, basically, ever since from a small age. And I used to go to car shows with that and show my car, and I found that very relaxing and it re-energized me. But in the last couple of years, I've sold that now, and so some of the things that I do to recharge is I'm a Reiki healer in my spare time. So as well as the stammering side, I like to help others by giving them healing. And I also heal myself as well. So I find that beneficial to me. I like to meditate to help clear the mind. I read a lot of self-help books, which also recharge me. And I've just taken up wild swimming. So swimming in open water in the lakes that we have up here in the Lake District.
Great there, Michael. Okay, so well, that's good because many people many people who stutter tend to neglect their own need for self-care, and
Definitely.
and I sense that many people who stutter, Michael, are are unaware of how to take care of oneself. Definitely,
Yeah.
And there's go ahead.
Yeah, because one thing that I've realized is, especially with stand up to stammering, if you are run down, how can you help others? So because you cannot give from an empty cup, so you've always got to make sure that your cup is at least half full.
Mm-hmm.
Because on days when I am really down due to issues that I've got going on in my life currently, um, helping others at times can be so draining. But I have never, or I won't allow myself to get so low myself that I cannot help others. So I think it's very vital that I notice when my like cup is half full, so I can take the time out if needs be and recharge, and then I'm able to give 100%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I find, Michael, with myself, when I'm feeling rushed or stressed out, that well, I tend to put my speech targets, my own, fluency plus targets on the shelf, and push through, which really works against myself. So I have to be always on guard to really sort of concentrate and not to allow the emotions when I'm rushed or stressed to overcome my targets. I'm concentrating on my targets.
Yeah,
Now, you also mentioned in part one of our interview that no, you use coastal breathing.
yeah,
However, and that has helped you manage your stuttering.
yeah,
Now, you also mentioned as well that uh, when you're under time pressure, such as conference call, or when someone asks you a question, or it's more impromptu, this is where you have the challenges. So would you like to elaborate on that a bit?
yeah. So when COVID hit, we all got sent home to work, and we nowadays we work through Microsoft Teams or Zoom, but in the early days we never had that option, and a lot of my work meetings were done via conference calls. And when you join a conference call, you have to say your name after the bleep. And for a person who stammers, one of the hardest things for them to say is their own name. So I know what I have to do with regards to the coastal breath to allow me to get my words out in what I want to say. But when you're under that time pressure and you've got that inner voice in your head saying, you can't do it, you can't do it, I had found myself just saying Wright, so just
Mm,
completely cutting out Michael. But I've allowed myself to think, no, it's okay to give yourself time, even when you are trying to say a name. So now, what I do now is, so say if I'm joining a conference call, I would make the first sound of the word Michael. So the first letter, I'd go M, and then take a pause, which helps me desensitize my name, Michael, and then I'd go for the full name. So it would be like Michael Wright. So
mm,
so just by making the first sound of the M, it helps me try again, but get my full name out without any issues. But
mm-hmm,
it's taken me time to allow myself to do that.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
Okay.
it's hard still when
This
under
is,
time pressure.
yeah.
Yeah.
You see, as a person who stutters, I still have a lot of trouble in introducing myself with. It's just the whole mindset, Michael, because my name is Greg O'Grady, so it's two G's, okay, and the
Yeah.
G is it's a popping sound like g, g. My name is Greg O'Grady, and this is where I tend to stammer,
Yeah.
and so this is it's. But however, once I concentrate on my targets, like the stretch syllable targets, my name is Greg O'Grady. It's much easier and it's less, sometimes it's a challenge, you see, when we have, when we have the targets, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is it takes a lot of energy to stutter.
Yeah,
Physically.
definitely.
Yeah. So a lot of energy to stutter. So, but I find that with speech therapy, and much like you, I sense, Mike, with the coastal breathing, it is a definite decision, which is easier on the body and the mindset.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
I would say it's easier. I would say if you put the time in, it isn't easy in the early stages because you have to learn a complete new way of breathing. But if you put the work in, you get the results out of it. Now, I've been using this technique now for a good 13 years, but in the early stages, like the first 3 months were absolutely fantastic. I was on cloud nine, and then gradually over time, I personally did. I relapsed into my old habits, and I forgot to use the breathing technique. So I went back on the course, which got me back on track. And since then, I've been using it like 99.9% every time I speak now. So even if I'm around friends that I'm comfortable with, I will still use it rather than not use it. Because as you said yourself, it's harder to stammer than it is to use this breathing technique to control my speech. Yeah.
Sometimes, Michael, I ask myself the question that, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this. When we're learning speech therapy, much like myself and you, in a way, and this is the question that we have to ask ourselves: is that the same thing as trying to mask our stuttering? Well, what's your thoughts on that?
Right. So you have people who stammer confidently and openly, and they're happy to do that. They are really confident speakers, even despite their stammer. And you have people who seek like greater control over their speech, like myself, and that's okay too. I just think it's a personal choice as to how you see yourself as a person who stammers, and accept it, or do you want to accept it but seek greater control? If you understand me.
Definitely.
But there's no right and there's no wrong way. It's an individual choice. No person stammers the same. No stammer is the same. So I think it's just down to the individual's preference, whether they would like to seek greater control through speech therapy or a private therapy course, or are they happy to stammer openly with confidence? Yeah. I applaud either way.
Correct. Yeah. Oh, same here, Michael, because it is a personal choice decision.
Yeah.
Do you feel that? And now I've spoken to a few people on some Stutter law that I remember one young lady, and because I asked her the same question, do you feel that you are a confident person who stutters? She said yes, she is. And much like like you, I really applaud someone like that. But a question to myself: is there such a thing as a confident stutter? Because when we stutter, no matter if we're overt person who stutters or somebody who is trying to manage their stuttering, there's a lot of emotional component, a lot of feelings associated. And I'm just wondering, how does that affect one's statement? Yes, I'm a confident stutterer. Because the feelings never go away, I don't think.
Yeah, I just think like if we had the choice, we wouldn't want to stammer, would we, or stutter? Yeah.
Stuttering sucks, and when all
Yeah.
said and done, it sucks.
So to me, it's all about acceptance. So if you've got the confidence in accepting your stammer and it is just the way that you speak, my thoughts are that even though you could appear confidently and stammer openly, deep down, I don't think you would want to do that. But, well, I personally didn't. I wasn't a confident person when I was an overt stammerer because I had the head shakes, the rapid eye movements, and I would just keep quiet. I didn't want to put myself into situations where I could be judged. But nowadays, now that I've got that level of control, I would say I am a confident stammerer now because I've got that control over my speech, and I actually enjoy speaking to audiences, in whether that be on live videos through stand-up to stammering, or it could be opportunities at work in like doing presentations on stammering. So I actually seek opportunities now due to that level of control that I do have. It's all about putting myself into situations that I once avoided, that I once was scared of, as it's the only way I will grow, I will improve. By avoiding these opportunities, I just think I would be reverting back to where my mindset was before I got this confidence. If you understand what I'm
definitely,
saying.
Mike.
Yeah.
Sorry, you can go ahead.
No, I've.
Oh, okay. Okay. Michael, do you feel there are benefits to being a person who stutters?
I think I wouldn't change the fact that I have a stammer. I don't think I would, because I think it makes us who we are. I think we've got a lot more empathy for other people, as we've been through so much ourselves. So I see that as a benefit, how we can relate to other people who may be struggling, as we may have had struggles ourselves. And I think it's just opened up a lot of doors for me, whether that's in the workplace or outside of work. I've made like some fantastic friendships through the stammering community, where if I never had a stammer, would I be as empathetic towards others? Would I have that caring nature? Would I have time for other people compared to if I hadn't had the stammer? Yeah, so I do think it has its positives, but it's also got its negatives. Right now, where I am with my speech, I think the positives way outside the negatives, but the younger Michael would have said the negatives outweigh the positives. But it's as I've got older, and I've got that control, and I understand myself a lot more now. I've accepted it, and yeah, I think that comes with age,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a mindset change as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I've completely changed my relationship in my mind is as to what I had with my stammer from a younger Michael to where I
Mm-hmm.
am now. Completely changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, that is so true, Michael, because, the more that we learn about stuttering, the more that we ed- educate ourselves about stuttering, the more that we get involved within the stuttering community, the more that we gain insight and awareness, and because when I think back about my first, when I started out in the speech therapy, I had this. My whole focus going to speech therapy, and we're going back a few years ago, not that long, but a few years ago, that I was focused on fluency. I had to be fluent because I remember going to my speech therapist, and I mean, well, at that time I was going through a lot of personal issues. I was starting up in a career, new relationships. It's my whole world, adjusting to a new job and things like that. So I thought that if I was fluent, things would be perfect. You know what I mean? All the emotional issues would go away. But since I have evolved and matured, that it, it's interesting. This my definition of fluency has changed completely, because it's not fluency I'm after now. It's more of I shouldn't say I'm after. It's more of I'm trying to manage my stuttering, and
Yeah.
compared to way back then, my speech. I always had a classified myself as a severe person who stutters, severe.
Yeah.
And because I also had these secondary characteristics of stuttering,
Mm.
and so now it's more of a managing my stuttering, and that brings me a lot of like a peace of mind in one sense. And much like you, we all have our bad days and good days, and but when I'm in my bad periods and moments, I no longer beat myself up as much as I did emotionally and psychologically. So it doesn't. I have a sense. I know how to step back and look at what happened, what caused it. And a
Yeah.
lot has to do with health and wellness. Was I
Yeah.
stressed? Was I trying to be fluent? And that sort of old tape of wanting to be fluent is still there in my mindset. Now,
Yeah.
do you still have a tape like that in your head? I've got to be fluent.
No. No. Um, one of the sayings that we have on Starfish is there's no such day as a bad day. Yeah. A bad day is if you don't wake up. So we may have challenging times, but no day is ever a bad day. What I'm doing now is I just want to seek, I just say to myself now, if I can be better today than I was yesterday, I'm happy with that. If I avoid situations that I'm scared of, that's not growth. But even if I have a challenging time and I am struggling, I take the positive from it by saying, well, previously, smaller Michael wouldn't have allowed himself to go into that situation in the first place. So take praise for yourself that you have placed yourself into that situation even if it goes not the way you would have liked, take the positive from it, that you placed yourself there in the first place. Don't dwell on the challenging time that you had. Forget about it, let it go, and tomorrow is a fresh start. But I'm not trying to be fluent. Even fluent speakers aren't fluent. I don't think there's 100%. I don't think there's a person who is 100% fluent. It's even newsreaders. They're not 100% fluent. They stumble. So why are we trying to fit into a society where people aren't fluent? Even the speakers that do not stammer, they aren't fluent. So why are we trying to chase fluency? 100% fluency does not exist. I'm just trying to be better than I was yesterday. So that's how I see that.
Oh, definitely, Mike. It's it is all in one's perspective, okay? And so I remember that, and I still have my what I consider my train wreck days, okay? when my speech goes off the rail. But I've gradually stopped saying the train wreck speaking experiences, because like I spoke to a friend of mine. I'm not too sure if you heard of Mary Wood. Mary is a Mary stutters herself, and she recently wrote a book called Beyond the Fear of Stuttering, which is an excellent book, Mike. I highly recommend it. Now, I've known Mary for a number of years, and during a conversation. So when we were talking about, as I was just sharing about my train wreck experiences, she said, Greg, instead of classifying it a train wreck experience, and it's almost like similar to what you kind of said as well. She views it as a wonderful period or day of stuttering. Now that's a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
Because when you say that, okay, when I say, well, Michael, I've had this wonderful day of stuttering, it softens I guess, in one sense, the emotional impact it can have on one. So it's a different perspective. So what are your thoughts about this? Instead of saying a train wreck experience, it's been a wonderful period of stuttering.
Yeah, I think it's a good, it is a good saying, because as you say, it just takes away all that, it just takes away all the pressure, and it just completely switches that mindset to trying to be fluent when we are having that challenging time. Yeah, I just think so for me, it is just the switching mindset, rather than I have had a really challenging day stammering. Just switch it around and say, I have had a fantastic day in stammering.
Listen, you're welcome to use that statement as a stand-up to stuttering topic. Get people's feedback. I'll be curious to hear what people would say about that, Michael.
I will have that as a mind over matter challenge.
The mind over matter. Yeah. So, Michael, you had mentioned that when you were 16 years old, you became a covert person who stutters. What triggered that? Because from ages 3 to 12, you were overt.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, was it the pressure, students?
I have no idea. So it wasn't as if one morning I woke up and I thought, right, I am going to be covert today because it wasn't. In a way, I think it could have been the body's way of protecting itself, as it wasn't a conscious move for me. It happened gradually, like as soon as I left school, basically, and I entered the workplace. It happened slowly but gradually, but I wasn't conscious of it. But over time, I had noticed that the head shakes had stopped, the rapid eye movements had stopped. I wouldn't hit myself anymore to try and force words out. I wouldn't squeeze things to help me force words out. And I got less and less blocks. I was just switching words around to words that I could say. But when I joined Sellafield, I found this to be extremely hard with swapping my words around, because within the nuclear industry, you've got to use certain terminology.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, if you use the incorrect terminology, people may think you're incompetent because you don't know what you're talking about. There are words within the nuclear industry which are very similar, which are very similar, but have a different meaning. And I found that hard because I couldn't say certain words, but I could say words that were close to it. And yeah, I got some very strange looks because I was using other words to describe the thing that I wanted to say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't a conscious move. I just think it was my inner self protecting myself, like from the head shakes, from the rapid eye movements. Yeah, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I often think about the kids now, the young adults, adolescents, school-age children in school. What advice would you give to people? I mean, students in school now, the school-age adolescents at this point, because I mean, this can be a very challenging period for a lot of students who stutter. And we all know based on experience, and I mean, for years and years, I lived as a covert stutterer, which caused me more problems than I needed. It's bad enough having a stutter, but then when you're trying to hide it, it causes a lot of emotional, psychological challenges.
So when I was of school age, I found it a very lonely place because I never talked about my stammer really. I never knew of any other person my age who stammered. It wasn't until I got to high school that I came across two other people. So that was around the age of 14, and I felt very lonely up to that point. And we had no social media back then in the 80s, 90s. So, but with the use of social media now, I think it's opened up so many opportunities for people who stammer to go on to a safe place and share their experiences, where they can unload their emotions, how they're feeling about their speech, and they can meet other people of similar ages who are in a similar position to themselves. But I never used to disclose that I stammered, and I would say for the younger generation, just be open and honest, disclose where you can, because if we don't start talking about stammering at a younger age, how can we change the perspective and educate people on stammering, if those who stammer and talk about stammering, because in the 80s, 90s, over here in the UK, stammering was seen as a comical thing. Like we had a sitcom called Opening All Hours, and the shopkeeper within this program had a stammer, and it would get cheap laughs off the audience. So over here, it's seen as a comical thing too. But I do think with the introduction of the film The King's Speech, it's completely raised the whole awareness on stammering. So I think now it's our role for people who stammer to talk about stammering outside of these safe, close stammering community groups that are on Facebook. Because if we want fluent people, if you want to call them that, to not see stammering as something to be laughed at, we need to talk about it outside the safe community that we have created. So I would say to the younger generation, just try and accept that you stammer, you talk differently towards others. Join these Facebook stammering communities where they can help build your courage and confidence, and own it. If you want to go down the speech therapy route and try and get greater control over it, do it. But if you are happy, in stammering openly, that's brilliant too. But don't hide away. Shout from the rooftops that you have a stammer, because the only way to gain greater control, the only way to educate people on stammering is by talking. Yeah.
Definitely, Michael. Yeah. Definitely. You see, when I think of stuttering, and I'm talking about my history of being a covert stutterer. Whether you're an overt or covert person who stutters, if one tries to hide their stuttering, one is also abandoning oneself as well. Because you're setting yourself up for a loss of a loss of developing one sense of identity or and individuality. And so when you're trying to hide it, even if you're, as I was saying, an overt or a person or a covert person who stutters, that you're chipping away at that your own sense of identity, individuality. And then it's almost like you're allowing stuttering to control your own life and your own activities. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so whether you stammer or you have a greater control over it, I think you've got to remain your 100% authentic self. You haven't to try and copy the way somebody else speaks, as that isn't you. And when if you're not being true to yourself, how can you develop? You can't really. Yeah, I just think if you do stammer, own it, embrace it, because we were born to be original. We weren't born to be an average. So our superpower is who we are. That's how I see it. And yeah, just embrace it as it's who you are. It makes your character, it makes your personality, it makes you as a person.
You see, and what we're talking about here, Michael, is stuttering. Stuttering is in many ways is also fear. We're afraid of rejection, and to mask this fear of rejection within, we tend to seek approval, recognition, that pat on the back, because we want to be accepted. Whereas, I mean, so this fear rules us, you see, and it sort of works against us. It's I also classify that as a self sabotage as well. We're self 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 sabotaging oneself. It's a big word.
Yeah. So just on the word fear, yeah, my mindset has completely changed with that word. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because how you described it then, yeah, that was everything that the younger Michael felt. So fear is spelled Fear. So you can fear everything and run. That's your first choice. Or Fear, you can face everything and rise. So that's what I'm doing now. I am facing those scary talks, those scary presentations, putting myself out there, as it's the only way I'll grow. So have you seen the iceberg analogy of a stammer?
Yeah. Definitely.
So on the starfish course, every time we do something that we're scared of, yeah, we are melting the underneath part of the iceberg. So that's how we see it on the course. If you don't put yourself into these scary situations that you are very fearful of, you will always have that great big iceberg underneath the water. But the more you step out your comfort zone and widen your comfort zone, that iceberg is shrinking.
Definitely, Michael. Yeah. And you're also befriending and addressing the lower part, the lower surface of the iceberg, the feelings of shame, anxieties, fear, lack of confidence. You see, I always feel that, I've been doing a lot of thinking about the iceberg and analogy. They say that Joseph Sheen, who developed the iceberg analogy, said that it's just above the tip of the iceberg is 10% of the stuttering, which is a physical component of stuttering, the secondary characteristics of stuttering. But below the surface is the emotional side, the 90% of the stuttering, the feelings of shame, embarrassment, isolation. But my feeling, and this is Greg O'Grady talking here, my feeling is that the tip of the iceberg is 1%. The emotional component is 99%, and I think that is the challenge. This is my thinking, and I think this is where we need. I mean, I'm a strong supporter of speech therapists, and I've had several speech pathologists work with me throughout the years, which is has helped me a lot. But they can only do so much. They can make us aware of the emotional component and help us understand where these feelings are, where these feelings are coming from. But we have to do the rest of the journey. We have to sort of
totally agree. Yeah.
What I call address the secret securities within that no one else sees. So this is why I feel that the key issue here is the emotional component. It's the 99% below the surface. It's not 1%. What what are your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, so where you said that they can like make you aware of the 99% or the 90% or of all your emotions and things, but it's up to you to actually act upon it. And if we want change, I had a breakdown in 2000 and when was it? 2014. I had a mental breakdown, and so at this time, because I'm adopted as well, so at this time, my natural mother had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. I was doing a dual role at work. I was trying to care for my dad as well. And my relationship had just ended. And I had issues about my adoption. And I had developed alopecia, all my hair went, and my speech was in a pretty bad way, even though I'd been on Starfish. And I completely lost it mentally. And the best thing I ever did was to place myself into private counseling for 12 months so I could work through all the issues that I had around my adoption. I had issues about my mum dying when I was 18. And I was really mentally exhausted from doing an 8-hour drive to go see my biological mother as well during her illness. And the counsellor made me see things in a completely different way as to how I was seeing things. And as the weeks were progressing, gradually, the grey cloud that I had over me was getting lighter and lighter. And then as the weeks were going on, I had less and less to talk about. Yeah. But that's why I think now, if I notice anything out of the ordinary with my mental health, the best thing I can do is to talk about it. Because for years and years, I'd bottled things up inside. I was trying to suppress all these emotions, these thoughts that I was having about numerous different aspects and things. But yes, so the best thing I ever did was to talk to a professional about the emotional side of life and my stammer and how that's affected me through all the bullying at school that I suffered as well due to my speech. Yeah, I just think if anybody is experiencing poor mental health, that 90%, which is under the water, if we're referring back to the iceberg.
99%.
Okay, the 99% that is under the water. I would say the best thing you can do is to share what you are feeling inside. Do not bottle it up anymore. Join the Facebook communities that are out there. Tell them how you're feeling, because you will get nothing but support. They will not judge you. People will be 100% behind you. That will give you advice. But if you are in a position to go and see a professional, go and see them, because it's the best thing I've ever done with regards to my mental health. Yeah, I would say, yeah, I would say talk about it. Definitely.
True, Michael, because one can have one can have a lot of speech therapy. I mean, we have the tools, but the without uh, without addressing the emotional component of stuttering, you really it is hard to benefit. I mean, fully from the actual speech therapy itself.
Yeah. Like, you can have all the tools and techniques in your bag. You can have hundreds of them, but if you aren't in that right frame of mind to apply them, to work on them, to put those tools and techniques into action, because the emotional side of stammering is holding you back, how can you progress? How can you accept who you are if if the emotional side is taking a hold of you? How can you be 100% your authentic self, the person that you want to be, the person that you are?
Yeah. You see, and this this brings to mind, Michael, the old African proverb that that takes a village to care for a child. Well, to reframe this for people who stutter, yeah, it actually takes takes an interdisciplinary care team to support and care for people who stutter. We're talking about not only speech therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers. So it's a whole care team, because I mean, for we as people who stutter, I mean, we all have different lived experiences, but there are layers and layers of emotional and psychological challenges that we actually need to face, which goes beyond the actual clinical speech therapy area, And so,
Yeah.
so as you were saying that you went for private counseling, and I also did the same thing as well. So you need you really need that care team to address the issues, and unfortunately, it's a lifetime journey. It won't happen overnight, but but the first step is to admit it.
Yeah.
So I need someone to talk to.
Yeah, because there was a time where mental health wasn't talked about. It was a taboo subject. But I think in this day and age now, it is okay not to be okay. And the biggest thing you can do is hold your hand up and say, yes, I am not okay. I need some help.
And down the road, with this therapy and support, we we will learn to accept our stuttering, and say confidently, it's okay to stutter. It's okay
Exactly.
to stutter.
Yeah. And by disclosing in any situation, in any speaking situation, it relieves all the pressure that we apply to ourselves. Yeah. It's so powerful to disclose as well.
Oh, definitely.
So powerful.
And also, you see, this this is the reason why I started off with with every some sort of law in introduction. My name is Greg O'Grady. I'm a person who stutters, because I need to hear that from myself, because I spent so many years trying to hide it.
Yeah.
And so there's a sense of freedom to it as well, emotional, psychological freedom. That okay, I stutter. So so I may have a good day of speaking, or may have a wonderful day of stuttering.
Yeah. I shall
So
definitely have that as a mind over matter challenge. I will.
excellent, Mike. So Michael, not to keep you, but thank you so very much for continuing the part 2 of some Stutter Law conversation, and we will definitely have you back for sure. Now, before we close, do you have any words of wisdom to say?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me, giving me the opportunity to speak. Words of wisdom, I would just say be 100% your authentic self, whether you are a person who stammer with confidence and courage. It doesn't matter what people think of you. You aren't a turtle or a snail, so you don't have to carry other people's opinions around with you on your back. Well, there are fantastic communities out there. You've got Stuttering to Confidence on Facebook. You've got Stand Up to Stammering on Facebook, and there's so many others community groups out there. Join them. They are there to help and support you. As stammerers, we spend so much time feeling isolated. I think now in this day and age, we don't have to feel alone anymore. We can get that support, that encouragement, that empowerment that is out there now on social media. And by joining these groups, you will make lifelong friendships and you will never feel alone. Yeah,
so true, Michael. And these are great words of wisdom to close by.
Some Stutterla is hosted by Greg O'Grady. It is produced, recorded, and edited by Paul De Decker, as well as Luca Dinu, who, by the way, wrote this jazzy theme music. Leah Bugden and Alicia Megison command our pages on Instagram and TikTok. Editing assistance was provided by the Labrador Languages Preservation Laboratory, or Labradory, at the Memorial University of Newfoundland. You can listen to or subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and Spotify. Video versions of each episode are found on our YouTube page. Some Stutterla is a production of the Communication Collaborative. Thanks for listening.